It was the day before Star Wars Day in the year 2000, May the 3rd. I was looking after an offshore oil and gas platform. I had a team onshore and a team offshore. We were doing some drilling operations to try and produce some extra oil, which was important to the company's financial results. I was getting really concerned about some accidents that had been happening. Thankfully, nobody had been hurt up to that point, but I was getting concerned that safety wasn't the prime motive. And I knew that the company would be concerned about that because the company made it clear that safety was a top priority. They put it on posters. No job is so important it can't be done safely. They put it on mouse mats. Safety is no accident. They even put it on the back of annual reports and screensavers. The safety of our people is our top priority. On that day, we dropped a large metal piece of drilling equipment. It fell several meters. It bounced, came to rest. Thankfully, it didn't hurt anyone, didn't damage any other equipment. But it was a clear indication that something was seriously wrong. Had somebody been in the area, they would have been killed at the time. So it was a matter of luck. So I said, we're going to shut down this operation. And my team offshore said, we agree, we need to actually think again about what we're doing here and make sure we don't hurt anybody, or heaven forbid, worse than that. 2 hours later, I get a call from New York. Now, this is from the CEO of the corporation, who was my boss's boss's boss, who I'd spoken to, I think, once at a social gathering. And he said, Bob, he said, I believe you've shut down the drilling operations. I said, yes, I have. He said, you do realise how important the oil from this new well was to our annual results? I'm saying, yes. He said, I hope for the sake of your career that you have made the right decision. I went, my career? I came off the call. I was bewildered. I felt let down. And I thought, am I going to get fired? Really? Am I going to get fired? Or am I going to have to compromise the principle here and actually carry on with an operation that I know is potentially really unsafe? I thought, if I get fired, I won't get a reference from the business that I'm working in. And if I don't get a reference, I won't get another job of a similar status and, more importantly, the similar pay. Because at the time I was living in a house where my mortgage and my salary were just about in balance. And I thought, I'm going to lose my house. And all these tricks were playing on me. I went home that night. I struggled to get to sleep. Woke up early the next morning, however, and things were clear. I thought, I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to be the person that agrees to an operation when ultimately somebody could die. And if they fire me, they can fire me. And if I can't get a job that pays the same amount of money, I'll get an evening job. I'll get a weekend job. I'll do whatever's necessary, but I'm not going to bend on the principles. Now, I didn't get fired. I didn't stay too long with that organization after that episode, but I resolved at that point. I thought, if I am ever in charge of a large organization, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm actually going to say what I mean what I say. I'm going to walk the talk, and I'm going to make sure that if we've got principles, those principles are real and genuine and honest, and we do what we say we're going to do. So fast forward 8 years, and I find myself in charge of a large organization. But this time I've got 6,000 staff and operations in 20 countries. 2 years prior to that, we'd introduced core values into the organization. And they were working well for the senior leaders in the team because we were using them to make decisions about which markets we should go into, what customers we should deal with, the kind of people we needed to hire into the organization. But I'd go out and speak to people across the business and I would say, so what do you think of the core values? And they would say, the core what? I said, the core values. And they'd say, I'm not sure we do them here, Bob. I'm saying, okay. They're not that core then, are they? And I'd ask them a simple question. I would say, how many core values do we have? We had 7 at the time. Is it 4? 9? I went back to my team and I said, we've got a bit of a problem here. I said, we're talking about core values all the time, but the people in our organization really have no appreciation of them at all. What have we done to try and make sure that people understand them? They said, Bob, we've tried everything. We've put them on posters, we've put them on mouse mats, we've put them on screensavers. Okay. So I asked them a question. I said, look, whose job is it to try and make sure that everybody in our organization is truly engaged and their hearts and minds are with us? And it was like an out-of-body experience, because as I'm asking the question, there's another part of my brain telling me the answer and saying, it's your job. Now, I had an issue because there was a study done in 1999 jointly with the New York Times and CBS, and they asked people from the general public, they said, what proportion of the populace are trustworthy? And they said, oh, about 30%. And they said, there was a supplementary question. They said, what proportion of the people that you know are trustworthy? And they said, that's different. The average was 70%, which doesn't really make any sense. But actually it does if you interpret it, that we tend to trust people we know, and we tend to distrust people we don't know. So I'm asking people in my organization to accept and trust the fact that these core values are real and genuine, and yet I didn't know them. So if I didn't know them, why would they trust me? And if they didn't trust me, why would they follow me? And if they weren't following me, who was I leading? And that's a question for anybody in an organization. If your people don't know you, if the people don't know what you look like, what you sound like, more importantly, if they don't know what you care about or what causes you concern, then why should they trust you and why should they follow you? And I thought, we need to break this down again. It starts with awareness. I thought, so how do I make people aware? I need to give them awareness. Oh, shoot. Don't you hate it when people roll their eyes during a presentation? I was going to do this as a PowerPoint chart. I was convinced that props were a better idea. It starts with awareness. How do you get people aware of the values in your business? We gave them a personal copy and asked to sign for them. That helped. I started writing a weekly blog about our core values, and I crafted this careful note that I thought everybody's going to read this and they're going to absorb all this knowledge about the core values. It was a waste of time. Because I wrote a note, I gave it to my comms department, they removed every ounce of personality and uniqueness out of it, turned it back into a grey management talk and put it out there, and people did what they always do. They said, I'll read that later. Nah, delete. So I thought, I need to get around that. So I said to the comms guys, I said, look, next time I'm going to write a note, I don't want you to edit it. And you could see the look of panic on their face. Particularly when I came up with a note that was, your baby is ugly. People read that one. And of course, the next week I put out a note, thoughts on death and beauty. We were beginning to get an audience here. People were beginning to understand this. But I also realized that the more I put personal information into the notes and shared the person I was, the more the response I got. So I talked about my father's death. I talked about my mother's Alzheimer's. I talked about my brother's suicide. And all the time the comms people are saying, you can't do that. But the response was remarkable. And of course, the next thing we had to do was to get inside people's brains. I wanted to do this from a bucket of embalming fluid, but no, that'll work instead. We set up a training course to tell people how to use the core values. We gave them scenarios and we said, what would you do in this scenario? And the teams would come up with all sorts of different discussions, and we'd say, now try it with the core values. Hold the core values against the decisions and see what you come up with. And it was remarkable how consistent the outcome was. Which really took us to the next point on the journey, which is this. What? Wasp foliage. No, think again. Belief. Belief. How do you get people to believe in the values? People want evidence. They want evidence that they're not going to get a phone call from the CEO if they do something against the core values, asking them if they've made the right decision for their career. So they needed evidence that we, as a senior team, were prepared to walk away from business because of the core values. And we had to tell them which contracts and what values we were walking away from. They needed evidence that we had senior people in our organization that we let go, which is fired, because their behaviors were incompatible with the core values, irrespective of how good they were at their job. And once people began to see that there was evidence to back up the claims of what we were saying about these values, you could see people beginning to believe in them and beginning to buy into them. And of course, the final point there is this. And you're thinking, engagement? I'm thinking, no. Commitment. How do you get people committed to the core values? We set up an award scheme. People started sharing the stories of how the core values were being used. And what really worked for us is once we started taking these these tales of how people were using the core values, turn them into proper stories and sharing them across the organization. It created the social proof that people were looking for. They said, my colleagues are all on board here, then I can get on board too. And the results were remarkable. As a business, we did really well. We probably did better than a lot of our competitors at the time. We attracted lots of good people to come and work for us because of the culture and values. And customers told us, they said, look, we're going to give you these contracts, and it's not because technically you're any better than your competitors. And we go, well, we think we are. Well, you're not. And it's not because you're any cheaper than your competitors. Okay, but we like your culture and we like your values. We like working with you. And I had a lot of cynical engineers in my business, and once I was able to show them a list of contracts that totaled in value over $2 billion, I said, we got these contracts because of the values. They're going, so we're doing this kind of stuff because it works. I'm saying, that's exactly it. We're doing it because it works, because it makes sense. So I was speaking to an old colleague of mine. I used to work offshore in the central North Sea, and I had an old colleague of mine called Mick McNally from Barnsley. And we met 2 years ago, and I was taking him through the journey of introducing core values over many years and doing lots of town hall talks and doing lots of weekly blogs and everything. And he says, Bob, it sounds like this is an awful lot of work. I said, yes, Mick, it was an awful lot of work. He says, it's not the sort of thing that many organizations commit to. I'm saying, no, they don't. He says, but it sounds like it's made all the difference. I said, yep, it's made all the difference. There's two choices in terms of core values. You can talk about them and put them on posters and mouse mats and screensavers, blah, 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 or you can do them. Thank you very much.